In between purchasing a Tesla and pushing back Canadian aggression on electricity tariffs, President Donald Trump was also able to negotiate a ceasefire, which is the beginning to the end of the war in Ukraine. It was a very busy day at the White House for President Donald Trump, as it usually is, and Donald Trump was very excited to talk to the press while perusing a line of Teslas, which he pledged to purchase one of in support of his buddy Elon Musk, who has been working diligently on Doge to cut back government waste, fraud, and abuse and save all of us money. Later in the evening, I almost forgot, the continuing resolution passed the House with only one no vote, Massey, and one no vote on the Republican side. And Donald Trump was celebrating the fact that he will now have money to spend on all of the initiatives he said he was going to spend money on for the American people, including no tax on tips, including no tax on overtime, including no tax on Social Security, and continuing to fund important things like the restructuring and rebuilding of the American military into the most lethal fighting force this world or any world has ever seen. Let's begin, however, with the ceasefire. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz were both in Saudi Arabia to sit down with the Ukrainian foreign ministers and the Ukrainian state leaders to discuss a ceasefire. And not only did they discuss one, but they came to an agreement for an immediate 30-day ceasefire with Russia.
Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable and accounts for their interests, their security, their ability to prosper as a nation. I want to personally we both want to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty, for hosting us, for making this possible. They've been instrumental in this process, and we're very grateful to them for hosting us here today. And hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians. And we hope that they'll say yes, to peace. The ball is now in their court. And but again, the president's objective here is, number one, above everything else, he wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate.
And that is step one. It was step one of the peace agreement was to go to Saudi Arabia, which Mike Waltz and Marco Rubio did. And step two is now to take it to the Russians and see if they'll come to the table and also agree to the terms of the ceasefire. But either way you look at it, this is a step that just a year ago nobody thought would be possible. And National Security Advisor Mike Waltz said now it's not a matter of if the war will end, but how and when.
Just think about it. We've gone from if the war is going to end to now how the war is going to end, and this was an important first step, and that was under President Trump's leadership. He has literally moved the entire global conversation to where we had a very senior Ukrainian delegation with us today. We've had engagements with our Russian counterparts, and now it's how the war is going to end, and that's under President Trump's leadership.
And I will say this, last year at this time, Mike Waltz and I were in my studio eating vanilla ice cream and making fun of Joe Biden. And now Mike Waltz is in Saudi Arabia negotiating the end to one of the most deadly wars we've seen in decades. So I'll just say congratulations to him. And also his career definitely seems to be advancing a lot faster than mine. But President Trump, like I said, also had a visit from his good buddy Elon Musk and another one of his several children, and 6 Teslas, which were parked outside of the White House yesterday because Donald Trump pledged in an effort to support one of the finest patriots we have currently working to help this country survive and not succumb underneath the weight of its own debt, Elon Musk. Elon Musk has been attacked maliciously and violently. His dealerships have been under attack. His cars have been bombed. His charging stations up and down the East Coast have been set on fire. There are protests against Elon Musk, and he's been badmouthed in the press. Of course, that's nothing new. That happens all the time. And Donald Trump said, look, I'm here and I am buying a car because Elon Musk isn't just a great American businessman creating a great product in the United States of America, but he's also a patriot, and nobody should be afraid to be or attacked for being a patriot to this great country. So if Donald Trump can buy a Tesla to support him, that's exactly what he's going to do.
I'm going to buy because, number one, it's a great product, as good as it gets. And number two, because this man has devoted his energy and his life to doing this. I think he's been treated very unfairly by a very small group of people. And I just want people to know that you can't be penalized for being a patriot. And he's a great patriot. And he's also done an incredible job with Tesla. And I mean, nobody else has a car company started up in the last 30 years that's been successful. I don't think so. and not only successful, but super successful. And because he's able to find billions and billions and billions of dollars of fraud and waste and all of the things, I mean, our country is going to be very strong very soon because of a lot of the things that he's done and a lot of the things that I'm doing. And there's no better team, but there's no better for what we're doing. There's nobody like this, and he shouldn't be penalized. And when I watched the other day, I said, I can't believe it. It should be the opposite. People should be going wild, and they love the product, but because he's finding all sorts of terrible things that have taken place against our country, they want to penalize him in an economic sense. And I just think that's very unfair.
It is very unfair. So Donald Trump said, I'm going to buy a Tesla. And they brought 6 different models to the White House. And he looked them all over and he got in and out of them and he kicked the tires. And Elon gave him the rundown. And in fact, he made a couple of barbs about Joe Biden at the same time.
Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. Think Biden could get into that car?
Yeah, probably not. He also made a joke about how he doesn't need notes because, well, you know.
They gave me notes. I said, I'm not Biden. I don't need notes.
Yeah. One of the funny we learned about President Donald Trump, or some people knew it, but Donald Trump wanted to reiterate it, was that he's buying a car. He's spending somewhere between $35,000 and $100,000 on an electric Tesla, even though he doesn't drive.
Now, here's the bad news. I'm not allowed to drive because I haven't driven a car in a long time, and I love to drive cars. But I'm going to have it at the White House, and I'm going to let my staff use it. I'm going to let people at the place use it. And they all are all excited about that. I'm not allowed to use it. Can you believe it? One of my great things in life is that I can, I like to drive cars, but I'm not allowed to.
Yeah, Donald Trump not allowed to drive the car that he just purchased, so he's going to let the staff of the White House drive it. And they're very excited to tootle around Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, in a brand new electric vehicle. Speaking of electricity, one of the other big stories yesterday was this attack from our neighbors to the north, Canada, the 51st state. And they were very upset with some of Donald Trump's tariff talk. Now that they have a new prime minister, they're trying to get tough. And Premier, what's his name? Doug Ford, I think, from Ontario, was trying to force Donald Trump or force a massive tariff on electricity coming into the United States of America. And of course, Donald Trump wasn't having it, so he fought back. Donald Trump wrote on Truth Social, based on Ontario, Canada, placing a 25% tariff on electricity coming into the United States, I've instructed my Secretary of Commerce to add an additional 25% tariff to 50% on all steel and aluminum coming into the United States from Canada, one of the highest tariffing nations anywhere in the world. This will go into effect tomorrow morning, meaning today. Also, Canada must immediately drop their anti-American farmer tariff of 250% to 390% on various U.S. dairy products, which has long been considered outrageous. I will shortly be declaring a national emergency on electricity within the threatened area. This will allow the U.S. to quickly do what has to be done to alleviate this abusive threat from Canada. If other egregious long-time tariffs are not likewise dropped by Canada, I will substantially increase on April 2nd the tariffs on cars coming into the U.S., which will essentially permanently shut down the automobile manufacturing business in Canada. Donald Trump does not mess around, and you don't mess with Donald Trump if you can't make an empty threat to him. And Doug Ford found that out. Doug Ford found it out the hard way, and immediately after a quick phone call with President Donald Trump, changed his mind about the massive 25% tariff that he was going to place on electricity. And President Trump was very happy to make that announcement while standing in front of his brand new electric Tesla.
Already Canada, and I respect very much. As you know, there's a very strong man in Canada who said he was going to charge a surcharge or a tariff on electricity coming into our country. He has called and he said he's not going to do that. Okay, he's not going to do that. And it would have been a very bad thing if he did. And he's not going to do that, so I respect that. But we were just informed that he's not going to do that.
But it also made Donald Trump think, why is it that our country would allow another country to supply us with electricity, even for a small area? Who made these decisions and why? And can you imagine Canada stooping so low as to use electricity that so affects the life of innocent people as a bargaining chip and threat? They will pay a financial price for this so big that it will be read about in history books for years to come. Now, Secretary of Energy Chris Wright was also asked about this, and he said the following about these Canadian initiatives and the future of energy here in the United States, supplying all American citizens.
Well, hydroelectric. They have dams in Ontario that got to go to marketplace, and those dams are not far from the U.S. border. So we do have free flow of electricity, free flow of oil and natural gas both ways across the U.S.-Canadian border. Energy systems are large scale, so they just tend to be built that way. But yeah, of course, that was an outrageous claim that we heard coming out of Canada. But I want to point out, of course, it's already been removed. Threatening energy security. That's why President Trump got elected. We were really degrading energy security in this country for 4 straight years. That was heading in a train wreck direction, higher prices for American, less job opportunities, less investment here. An AI race was about to kick off, and we were set up to lose. We cannot afford to lose the AI race to China. Think of the national defense security implications of that. I think Americans recognize that. They brought President Trump back into power, and he is full steam ahead. We've got to grow energy in the United States, increase our energy security, drive down prices, and enable the investment conditions so the United States can lead on AI. That's a lot of reversals that have to happen, but believe me, this administration with President Trump's leadership is working on that every day, 7 days a week.
Electricity and the stars once again take the forefront and have the spotlight shone on them, not just as economic measures, but also as national security measures. We can no longer have any other country, even our so-called friend and ally Canada, threaten us with electricity or any other stoppage of vital supplies. And so Donald Trump is going to make this country 100% self-sufficient, which makes it 100% safe from any foreign threat. Remember, foreign threats don't just come in the way of bombs and bullets, but also in the way of these obnoxious tariffs and just crushing, bruising economic disadvantages that are imposed on us by, again, countries that are supposed to be our staunchest allies. Karoline Leavitt was asked about electricity in the press briefing room, and she had this to say.
Canada has been ripping off the United States of America and hardworking Americans for decades. If you look at the rates of tariffs across the board that Canadians have been imposing on the American people and our workers here, it is egregious. In fact, I have a handy-dandy chart here that shows not just Canada, but the rate of tariffs across the board. If you look at Canada, since you brought it up, American cheese and butter, nearly 300% tariff. You look at India, 150% tariff on American alcohol. You think that's helping Kentucky bourbon be exported into India? I don't think so. 100% tariff on agricultural products from India. Look at Japan, tariffing rice, 700%. President Trump believes in reciprocity, and it is about dang time that we have a president who actually looks out for the interests of American businesses and workers. And all he's asking for at the end of the day are fair and balanced trade practices, and unfortunately, Canada has not been treating us very fairly at all over the past several decades.
The 700% rice tariff, I had no idea that was even a thing. I didn't know that was happening. But Karoline Leavitt pointing out that there is a tariff on Japanese rice, and it is egregious. Once again, the reason that Japan tariffs their rice is because they don't want people buying American rice. They want people buying Japanese rice. It's one of their number one crops. So they make it almost unacceptable or impossible for any other country to survive in their market. When the United States does the same thing, everybody on the left starts screaming, "Oh, taxes, it's horrible. What are you doing? You're crushing our economy." No, you can still buy rice. You can still buy cars. We're still going to have electricity. We're just going to have it all made here in the United States of America. The AP, the Associated Press, who I must have missed the announcement, but now they're allowed back in the press briefing room. The AP was back in the press briefing room. Karoline Leavitt answered, or rather called on one of the reporters to answer a question. And man, did she regret it, because this guy was right back to his old ways.
He's actually not implementing tax hikes. Tariffs are a tax hike on foreign countries that, again, have been ripping us off. Tariffs are a tax cut for the American people, and the president is a staunch advocate of tax cuts. As you know, he campaigned on no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, no taxes on Social Security benefits. He is committed to all three of those things, and he expects Congress to pass them later this year.
I'm sorry, have you ever paid a tariff? Because I have.
That's
they don't get charged on foreign companies. They get charged on the importers.
And ultimately, when we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again. And I think it's insulting that you are trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press.
Which is something you should regret doing, giving questions to the Associated Press. And bravo on the way that she handled that uppity reporter. Look, the media is never going to change. The Democrats are never going to change. The only thing that's going to change is this country for the better because of Donald Trump's policies. And it's not just his policies on tariffs and international trade. It's his overall outlook on how the economy is going to grow. And Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, was asked about that as well. Here was his explanation as to why Donald Trump is the right president at the right time. And no matter what happens, things are going to get rosier for the American people and not so rosy for everyone else.
For once, I would like for people to talk to me and to our president about why it's great to be an American instead of, I don't care about German car companies making cars in Germany. Good for them. And Korea, good for them. And Japan, good for them. Their prime ministers can take care of them. Thank God we have finally a president who takes care of us. He's not the president of the world. He's the president of the United States of America, and he cares about American workers. And that's who he's here to protect. And all this other nonsense has got to go. Because the fact is the stock market is going to be much, much higher. Much, much higher. And you know what? If they're worried about this change, they're foolishly betting against Donald Trump. Because if I were you, I'd bet for him.
And Donald Trump is winning. In fact, yesterday he won in the House of Representatives when Mike Johnson came out yesterday evening and announced that the House Clean CR passed with only one vote against, which was Thomas Massie from Kentucky, a vote we knew was going to happen and that Donald Trump was none too happy about.
This was a clean CR. It freezes funding. It's a responsible thing to do. And we're ensuring that troops continue to get their paychecks and TSA agents continue to do their work and be paid. And essential workers on the border and elsewhere are doing their jobs. It's shameful what happened on the Democrat side. They engaged in a misinformation campaign. They put out talking points about the bill on Friday before the bill was even filed, which was Saturday afternoon. They've been lying and misrepresenting the facts about what's in the bill, and the American people can read it for themselves. It's only 99 pages long. We did our job today, and it's shameful that they will stop at nothing. They will suggest that this bill is something that it's not, and they will run out the clock to shut down the government in a desperate attempt to stop the America First agenda. It
didn't work, though, even though Thomas sided with the Democrats and said no to this bill. President Donald Trump, yes, I'm sure he's excited that it passed, but he's also very angry with the Kentucky congressman. He wrote on Truth Social, so Massie can vote for debt ceiling and budget to be put into the Trump administration, making them both the Republicans' problem and responsibility, but can't give us a simple continuing resolution vote allowing us the time necessary to come up with a great, big, beautiful bill. Republicans only, no vote. Grandstander. We'll see what happens with Thomas Massie in the midterm election in 2026. In the meantime, at noon, we've got more coverage of the continuing resolution, some other stories. There's also big news about Rosie O'Donnell. She finally did what she said she was going to do and fled the country. We'll have all those stories, more in-depth reporting, maybe some interviews. Who knows what's going to happen? But it's all going to happen at noon today on my second podcast, Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. You can live stream on YouTube or Rumble or X. You can also download the podcast anytime you want and listen at your leisure. Go to your favorite podcast platform, search Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, download, listen, and enjoy.